Right. Good morning. Just doing a quick sound check. For anybody online, can you just raise your hand? Let me know you can hear us.
Alice has got her.
I see Alice's hand up. All right. Thank you. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the February meeting of the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council. I will tell you, we have a packed agenda today, but it is truly a testament to how much is going on. So we want to get all of this in and have a chance for folks to have some dialogue. But obviously, we're gonna be that gatekeeper today to try to keep us on track as best we can. So with that, let's go ahead and rise and face the American flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. All right, and just as our normal reminder for board members, make sure you tie in with Carrie to get credit for today's meeting. And we've got obviously a number of items that we need that we'll be voting on. And so we want to make sure we've got the quorum to address that. So first out the gate, item 4 is approval of the agenda for today's meeting. Everyone should have seen a copy of that. Any comments, questions, changes to the agenda as proposed for today? All right. Mike's good. No. Hearing none, all board members in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, the agenda is approved as presented. Thank you again, Carrie, for helping pull all that together. Item 5 are the board meeting minutes from the January meeting. Again, that all the board members should have seen that going out in the package. Any comments, changes, edits to the minutes from the January board meeting? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes? Making that happen. All right, well, this literally, we're like moving along at record pace here, Dan, so this is good. So don't ruin our mojo.
Okay. Want to keep it rolling.
No, this we just got a great opportunity. Again, we've talked a lot about what's been happening with the coordination and things at the county and the Office of Wildfire Preparedness and the coordination group, and just lots of things that are happening in the planning world right now. And one of the key projects that's been going on, that's been championed by the Transportation Commission, has been the Greater Placerville Evacuation Study. And as it's getting closer to fruition here this spring, Dan Bolster from the Transportation Commission is really trying to get out and engage stakeholders, particularly fire safe councils and others. And so we wanted to provide Dan an opportunity to share that project and what that is and sort of where it's at in the process. So without further ado, Dan, I'm going to turn it over to you. And if you just do a song and dance while I get the PowerPoint running, we'll be good.
Thank you, Ken. And also, Warriors here. So, Woody's leadership, ECTC, that helps us go after grants like this that allow us to do the planning that benefits all of us in the county. And while Ken's getting that up and running, I just want to thank Ken and many other of the first responders here. At the El Dorado County Transportation Commission, our responsibility is to do transportation planning and funding of money to build roads, transit, bike paths on the west slope of El Dorado County from Echo Summit west of the county line. We are not wildfire experts. And so it's only through the help of individuals like Ken and agencies, El Dorado County OES, CAL FIRE, El Dorado County Fire. I'll go on and list more of them later. But it's been tremendous collaboration and coordination that has allowed us to marry our transportation technical expertise with all of the agency's wildfire expertise. So
you have it on your screen? Should be screen sharing.
Have to say I got it here. All right.
Perfect.
Ready?
Fire away.
All right. Let's skip forward and to the project overview slide. Couple of slides forward.
Did
You
catch-
go one more.
I did.
All right, thank you. Thank you. So EDCTC, I'm the acronym, is undertaking this evacuation preparedness study. It's not an evacuation route planning study. It's not intended to tell you where to go if a fire comes out. That's a responsibility of El Dorado County Sheriff, OEF. They'll do that. What we're doing is we're trying to identify the critical transportation infrastructure necessary to allow all of us to evacuate our neighborhoods in a timely manner and allow the first responders to get in. The project area encompasses about 87,000 acres in El Dorado County. And basically between Fresh Pond on Highway 50 down to almost the El Dorado interchange, north to the South American River Canyon, and south to Slide Park Road, down E16 to Bucks Bar, Pleasant Valley, all the way back down to Missouri Flat Road. So it's a pretty good chunk of the county. We would have done more if we'd had more money, but that's what our grant funding allowed us to do. And so the ultimate end game of the study is to identify the infrastructure projects needed to allow all of us, like I said, to evacuate first responders to get in during a wildfire event. We completed in June of 2023 an existing conditions report that gave us an understanding of the existing infrastructure, that's roads, power, water, and then also vulnerable communities in the project area, and then also wildfire conditions in the project area. And we finished that, and then once that was done in June of 2023, we moved into traffic modeling and wildfire scenarios during the summer all the way up to December of 2023. Now we're working on the draft plan, and I'll tell you more about that as we get into this. So let's go ahead to the next slide, please, Ken. And I talked a little bit about project partners and how important collaboration has been in this project. We started in 2022, and you know, I had early meetings with OWOPR and some of the first responders, but it was OWOPR that had the vision to see all the different efforts that were going on in the county just starting to come in. And got a few questions like, what's the transportation outfit doing? What's the wildfire?
Might ask that.
Yeah, and OWOPR, and I'll give Ken credit for coming up with what we wanted to tell the public. We're creating a fire adapted and resilient El Dorado County through collaboration and coordination. And my experience is that couldn't be truer based on the last couple of years of working on that. I mentioned CAL FIRE, Caltrans, City of Placerville, El Dorado County Fire Safe Council, El Dorado County Fire, OWOPR, Sheriff's OES, El Dorado County DOT. I mean, there's many others, but they've been like the ones that have been shoulder to shoulder with us through this whole process. Next slide. Real quick about public outreach. In addition to working with our agency partners, public outreach has been key in this. This is a really technical, data-driven study, but we want to marry that effort with input from the public. So we've held community meetings, workshops. We reached out to organizations like the Apple Bill Growers to sit down and talk to them about wildfire. What do they think about during harvest season, having to do an evacuation? And then we formed a stakeholder advisory committee of various NGOs and organizations like Marshall Hospital, Marshall Foundation, those folks to meet with, to get their input. obviously our fire safe council meetings, and we've done non-traditional outreach, like going to farmers markets and having a pop-up booth and give them information about what we're doing. Next slide, please. We've also used social media tools like this one called Social Pinpoint, and it was hosted on the El Dorado County Transportation Commission project website. And we invited the public to all those marks on there are dots where people put in their, like, there's a 1-lane bridge right here. And it creates problems for evacuation. We'll go ahead to the next slide. And so here's an example. We've got one person with the pin by Highway 50 and Pony Express Trail, and they suggested use traffic control here during an evacuation to usher westbound residents from Pollock Pines onto Highway 50. So you take stress and congestion off of Pony Express. So that was, it's a good comment. And then actually in the modeling, that concept was implemented and it proved to be an effective one. So that's how we take public input and it actually benefits the study. Next slide, please. This one, I mean, it's an obvious question. Why now? I think the campfire caught all of our attention, especially the issues they had with evacuations. Our agency reached out to Joni Jones, who was the mayor of Paradise during the campfire. She was also the former Caltrans District 3 director, so we had a professional relationship in our agency with her. And we asked her, if you were going to write a grant, what's the key things you want to include? And she really helped us scope it. Back then, I also reached out to Ken for his input. And so obviously the increased threat of wildfire, it's the county's, what I think is the greatest risk that we all face. So that's why we went after this. Okay, next slide, please. And the next. Okay, so one of our first tasks was to look at the transportation network. We wanted to look at and identify the major routes in the project area. So then we could assess the performance of those road networks, eventually look at evacuation time estimates, where are the bottlenecks when we do model simulations. Next slide. And as part of understanding the traffic, we wanted to understand also where like the cameras are at, where bridges are, signals, all of that, understand that they make up the transportation system. Next slide. And then we want to understand the background traffic volume within our project area. So we looked at annual average daily traffic. We depended on Caltrans data. They had like across the state over 40,000 real-time monitoring devices. They pick up traffic. So that was our basis. And then we also had traffic studies from the county and the city that we utilized. But the key takeaway from this slide is as you go from the west part of the project area, there's high traffic volume. You move towards Placerville, and the further east you go, it goes from high, medium to low volume when you get up towards Pollock Pines. And next slide. Then we want to understand the daily variations in traffic, as well as seasonal variation. We all know what Apple Hill congestion does to Highway 50 through Placerville, as well as if you live in Apple Hill area and you're trying to move around on a fall weekend. Next slide. Weekday congestion, and this is mostly about local traffic. Now on a Monday, you have congestion from people coming back down from the Tahoe Basin, but mostly it's about understanding local traffic. Next slide. This one is about the mixture of local traffic, visitors heading up to Tahoe, going to Apple Hill, going rafting on the South Fork, and then the employees that work at all those businesses in the agritourism area. Next slide. So once we had that understanding, then it was time to model wildfire scenarios. And working with Sheriff's OES, Old Whopper, CAL FIRE, El Dorado County Fire, the City of Placerville, and El Dorado County DOT, we formed what we call the Virtual Incident Command Team, and worked with those fire professionals to identify 4 key fire scenarios in the project area. And those were the Chili Bar Fire, Slab Street Fire, Martinez Street Fire, Bucks Bar Fire. And those scenarios represent 4 what we consider real and potential threats to the greater Placerville community and the project area. And each of those scenarios are defined by different parameters. That includes the fire origin, direction of burning, rate of spread, season, and time of day. And by modeling these wildfire scenarios, the study aimed to identify expected travel behavior within the evacuation and warning zones. And the evacuation zone is kind of the reddish area, and a warning zone would be yellow area. And where the evacuation traffic is going, what's their destination, as well as potential road closures. And let's see. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, we worked with CAL FIRE and OES, Old Whopper, County DOT, Caltrans, and the City of Placerville. And we met in early September at Sheriff's OES and went through a virtual scenario, all 4 of these fires. And we had Sheriff's OES and the CAL FIRE Incident Command team working together. It was an eye-opener for me. I've never been in that situation before, to see this incredible level of professionalism, which we all know is there, but just see how they work together and how this became game on. It was a very real situation, took it very seriously. And so out of that, our project team was able to understand the size of the evacuation zone and the size of the warning zone. And then, so for each of these fires, so we got Slab Creek. Can you go back one? Yeah, okay. I'll just give you a quick, try and be quick here. For the Chili Bar Fire scenario, the origin is near SR 193 and Chili Bar, right down by the South Fork. The direction of burn is south-southeast towards the City of Placerville. The rate of spread estimated to reach the City of Placerville in 1 hour. The season would be the fall. Time of evacuation order was middle of the night. And SR 193 would have a full closure, resident evacuation only. US 50 eastbound and westbound approaching Placerville would be closed to all non-emergency vehicles. So we went through that level of detail in identifying the parameters for these scenarios. The background traffic condition, no background traffic, since it's 3 a.m., only household evacuation traffic given the middle of the night order. Go ahead next, please. Slab Creek wildfire scenario. This is the one that we wanted to use to identify the potential impact of Appleville's agritourism traffic. So this one originates down by the Slab Creek Dam on the South Fork. It's burning southeast towards Camino and Cedar Grove. Rate of spread, it's going to reach the edge of that red zone in over several hours. It's going to take place in October on a peak Appleville weekend. The evacuation order is going to be given in the afternoon. There's no closures in effect. And US 50 remains open to through traffic. Evacuation zones assume household, visitor, and employee evacuation demand. And this is the one scenario where, if y'all remember Triple Green or the Caldwell fire, the city was able to take Caltrans, turn all the lights on Highway 50 to a solid green signal. It would be very beneficial in this scenario. Okay, next, please. The Martinez Creek fire. This one is in the Martinez Creek drainage near the intersection of Martinez Creek Road and Church Mine Road, a little bit south of Diamond Springs and El Dorado. We wanted to get something coming up from that direction. So it's burning north-northeast towards Diamond Springs. Rate of spread reaching the extent of the evacuation zones over several hours. It's going to start on a Saturday in October. These are all starting when they have like the peak of the fire season and everything's really dry. No closures in effect. Background traffic, US 50 remains open through traffic. And the evacuation assumed household visitor employee. Next, please. The Bucks Bar fire scenario is the fourth one. Last one starts at Bucks Bar, right by the Cosumnes River, and it burns northeast towards Pleasant Valley. It reaches the extent of the reddish evacuation zone over several hours. Starts on a Saturday in October. Evacuation orders given in the afternoon. And the closures, E16 between Bucks Bar Road and Pleasant Valley Road, northbound bound evacuation traffic and emergency traffic only. US 50 is open both directions. Okay, that's next slide, please. Okay, now we can get into the meat of the evacuation law. Okay, so to analyze those 4 wildfire scenarios, our consultant Randy Johnson with the consulting company DKS, and he built a travel demand model specifically for this project. And it was called a dynamic traffic assessment simulation model in technical terms. And it wanted to capture and analyze the key parameters surrounding an evacuation. That'd be evacuation demand. What's the total number of vehicle trips evacuating the red zones and then the yellow warning zones? Evacuation destination, where are those vehicles going to? Departure time distribution, the time period over which evacuees depart. And then the roadway network, the roadway capacity available during an evacuation to influence evacuation route selection. Like, are they going to go down Carson Road? Or are they going to go on Highway 50? Which way are they going? The model will tell us that. It'll tell us where you should consider road closures, traffic congestion, and other factors that may reduce capacity, such as visibility. So the benefit of using that dynamic traffic assessment model is it allows you to model the flow of traffic at 15-minute intervals. And what that does is let you see congestion as it builds up. And then it'll allow you to understand queuing as that congestion built up. So if we had, like if I could plug in a 2-minute version of the model running, like Highway 50 through Placerville, it would look like a bunch of ants running all over the system. But then you would see those ants start to back up, like where 50 meets Placerville Drive. And that allows you to see that's congestion. So what we got out of that was evacuation time estimates to clear evacuation zone, travel time estimates to reach the study area boundary, and identification of evacuation transportation facilities, and then where are the bottlenecks. Go ahead and go to the next. Now, so out of the modeling, we identified evacuation operational strategies and infrastructure project. So an operational strategy would be one that takes a person. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, Ken. So here, like on the far left, you can see there's a road closed sign put out. So these are operational strategies, and that road closed sign, that was a strategy employed at Bucks Bar and I think E16 during the Caldor fire. National Guard was out there. that's closed. So it's a relatively low cost. We're not adding pavement to a road. We're not building a signalized intersection. It's like that's low manpower. All of it require people, but you want to know how many people. So you can tell Troy, you're going to need 4 people at this intersection to do the work that needs to be done. So we came up with those kinds of estimates. So it's manual traffic control, road closers, and then you can also have the right-hand one. You can adjust the signal to evacuation specific signal timing plan. And the model allows you to figure out, well, what would that signal might be? Go ahead. Infrastructure improvements include you've got the manual flaggers. We talked about signal timing, talked about taking an intersection and signalizing it so then you can operationally from a distance control the flow through there. And then trip to green, looking at that as an operational or an infrastructure improvement. Go ahead, Ken. And then one of the most significant ones, the modeling showed that most everybody in all the scenarios, probably 80–90% of the traffic is going westbound, eventually on 50. So when you have traffic coming off of Placerville Drive and then meeting traffic coming down westbound 50, there gets to be a big backup there, especially getting past the Missouri Platte interchange. So the concept that we come up with to address that is something we're calling an evacuation lane. So you take the existing shoulder and maybe you have to widen it a little bit, but these are 2 examples from Florida on the left and Texas on the right, where they do that for hurricane evacuation already. So we've talked to Caltrans about the feasibility of this and doing it from the Missouri Flat interchange all the way down to the Cameron Park interchange. So you have enough distance so you don't clear. Go ahead. Next steps. So this week we're meeting with Fire Safety Council, and we really appreciate the opportunity to meet with all of you. You work with wildfire in your communities or professionally, and we really look forward to the opportunity to have your input. And then on March 19th, we're going to host our stakeholder advisory committee meeting to share this information with them. We're going to do a virtual community workshop the evening of March 19th, and we'll get the virtual link pushed out next week for that, and you'll all receive it. March 23rd, the city of Placerville and Placerville Fire Safety Council is doing their annual wildfire safety event. We'll be there. On April 4th, we're going to present the draft study to the EDCTC board and to the public. And if you don't know, the El Dorado County Transportation Commission Board is comprised of 4 Board of Supervisors members, so District 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then 3 members of the City Council. And for that meeting, we're going to invite Supervisor Lane from District 5 to that meeting. So we'll have all the Board of Supervisors there, and we'll also invite the other 2 City Council members to come. So we want to have both Board of Supervisors and City Council members at that meeting. And then based on all the input that we receive, we will go ahead and revise the study. And then on May 2nd, we'll take it to our board and ask them to approve it as final. That's it.
Okay, with that, and I'll do my best to manage this for Dan. Questions in the room? We'll start with Ernie, and I'll just put your hand up high after, so I make sure we capture everybody. Go ahead, Ernie.
Good morning. We've had several tabletop exercises so that the number gets until it's ended. But one of the key things that we were looking at is the evacuation of the Alzheimer's School. And the getting the buses up to the school and then getting them back down on a one-way road of the Grizzly Flat. Not going over the Forest Service area. You probably do have it on your maps and models, but I would caution to really emphasize schools. If you any anticipation of this happening during a school period.
Yes, we have, the El Dorado School District is one of our stakeholders, and we've reached out to different schools, and that's obvious, very good consideration. Next.
I think, Michael? Give him a microphone. Can someone hand Mike a microphone? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Conley with Auburn Lake Trails. One problem we've had on evacuations is large animal movements. Did you consider that in some of this planning?
Yes, the South County Large Animal Rescue and El Dorado County Animal Control are on our stakeholder group, so absolutely. And we all know, I mean, I'll let my executive director Woody share his perspective.
Yeah, I think.
Just would you have a mic?
I think we took that into consideration in regard to the evacuation required areas versus the warning areas. But I also think if you live in a rural community and have livestock, we're going to take that into account the decisions or when you evacuate, for example, we evacuated all over neighborhood one. Because of course it's get out and we usually get long time. And so I think working with emergency responders, making sure that they're aware of what you have to do to respond to evacuations would be very helpful. That was the case of we certainly are ready for that. While that might just real quickly comment. The answer the next steps on this plan. But ultimately the plan is just going to be adopted by mission and it's going to fail. But it's going to be used to go out and advocate and apply for federal and state transportation funding. And we know there are a number of federal programs out there now that are supporting climate adaptation and state funding. And this is one of the first plans of any time in the state, so we'll get out in front of that early to secure money to make these improvements. Sooner rather than later. There's one final point I'll make, and that is when we saw the evacuate proposal for widening shoulder. Some of you might question why don't we just widen highway 53 lanes and make it available all the time. And the state of California has put an end to expanding highways and freeways, expanding capacity of this transportation system, basically to respond to climate change and greenhouse gas emissions. If we could still build those additional capacity lanes, we certainly would. But the state has certainly put an end to that, and we don't see us taking impact like that. And federal policies are now also starting to adopt this. So, just for those that think the obvious answer is why I would think the forces would love to do that. Okay,
Yes, back.
You watch the scene that I talk emotion, I'm now. What are you going to do after? Everything's closed. I had concerns and worked it out with the sheriff's office because I could walk into my place 30 times. Not everybody can do that. So our plan is set so that people can get in to rescue, not people, but organizations, and go in and rescue the small animals. Because we have no small animal evacuation groups in the town.
First, yes, we consider neighborhood radio watch. I live in Coloma.
Yeah.
The neighborhood radio watch down there, and I fully appreciate the value of it. Listen to the recording of the, I can't remember her name now, but she was with the neighborhood radio watching Grizzly Flats and her call during the fire, so, I mean. Yeah, Mary, thank you. Yeah, we all appreciate the value and importance of neighborhood radio watch. And, the second question, I think, gets more into how sheriff's OES responds and manages that.
I just want that point when you're discussing
Yeah.
brought up because it was a concern to me. I saw it.
You want to hear
On the later.
later.
Then it'd be the Calvert cause a lot.
Yeah, I think you really need to make a clear distinction between this wildfire preparedness study with the actual execution of evacuation that's done by the experts, the emergency responders. We will have, Pam and I will have no role, mission staff will have no role in that. We'll be evacuees and that's it. I know that during Howler fire, the county worked out of an operator, the exception. There was property that had some kind of agricultural use. I can't imagine that they wouldn't continue that practice and keep their fires giving a permit, an access permit, what's to say, to those parcels that have some kind of use. I know that that's, that was my example, and I was able to do that. So I think, again, clear distinction between the actual evacuation event and this study. This study is truly solely purposed to identify those weak points in the transportation system. Clearly paint that picture and tell that story and let us go out and do what we do.
Well, and I will add, because it's not on the agenda because it was late breaking with Lieutenant Morton getting some handouts approved and programmed. Lieutenant Morton's going to provide a presentation during the sheriff's OES presentation stakeholder report today that will talk about perimeter and the evacuation. So we can capture any discussions relative to evacuations, et cetera, at that time. And we'll definitely make time for that. And definitely, as both Dan and Woody have said, there's a very distinct and defined role that this study played that doesn't cross over into the actual operational aspects of evacuation. So I see I'm gonna go to Chris here in the room, and then we'll go to Alice next online after Chris.
Yeah, Elizabeth.
Oh yeah, and we'll get Elizabeth too. Sorry. Just keep raising your hand and we'll get everybody.
That you would, but it's more of a broader perspective. When the public sees signage like E16, which people would think would stand for emergency, and 16 being a route of a system, they get confused then when we tell them we're actually going to do incident command. That's where we'll decide whether or not we're going to evacuate and what route we're going to take to evacuate. You can't prepare in advance with these types of fires, essentially. And I was wondering if you could do you agree with me, or do you think it is what is the system that we're going towards? And can this maybe more for you?
Well, I think it's actually be more for Lieutenant Morton when he gets up there. And again, it's really, we can prepare ahead of these. And I think that's what we're really trying to talk about. All of the work that Dan and Woody are bringing forward, that this entire partnership is done with this team effort on this transportation study is just that. It's to help us prepare. As Dan talked about, where it's those 4 fire scenarios, those could have been 400 fire scenarios. They picked those because it was the best representative of the area. But what it did was it told the group, where are the congestion points? Where do road improvements, where are they needed that could help alleviate those concerns? Those are all things that study is helping us prepare for now. When the fire is occurring, you're right. We don't know where it's burning to. We don't know what's impacted. We don't know the conditions of the fire, the speed, the direction of travel. That is where this whole planning piece then shifts to the operations team and the folks that are managing the incident and the emergency, and they make those decisions as the incident is unfolding, and then communicate that out. And that's where it gets to your questions. Yeah, there are lots of confusing things out there. What does E16 mean? And what's the right evacuate? Those are all the things. And I think when we get to Troy here a little bit later this morning, a lot of that, I think as you see what Chief Lilienthal and Lieutenant Morton have been working on, a lot of this is really moving forward in how to answer a lot of those questions. And I think it's going to be a pretty exciting discussion. All right, let's go online to Alice first, and then we'll go back to Elizabeth.
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like a really neat process. I have a question about the history of this kind of modeling. Is it really new? Was it done before the campfire? Is it being done all around the state and everyone's learning from each other? I'm just kind of curious where we are in the whole modeling and how accurate it is.
I think it's pretty much brand new. You know, the project team, Randy Johnson, had to build the travel demand model specifically for an wildfire evacuation scenario, Alice. And, you know, I mean, we had a meeting recently with Caltrans, and they just said, you guys are a couple of years ahead of us by when we started, and the modeling that we're doing. And I'll just say the modeling that we're doing is looking at, you know, being used by other agencies and other efforts. And
No, I'll just add to that. So dynamic traffic modeling is not new. This type of dynamic traffic modeling is new. So this is building on, you know, decades of travel demand modeling, which looks at the existing and planned transportation system, the existing and planned land uses, and then takes those into account and determines what capacity, what type of transportation network is needed. The difference now is that this is looking at the existing land use to various conditions, whether it's Apple Hill or Off Beach or whatever it might be, and then looking at using that system for evacuation instead of the traditional method, which would look at the peak daily traffic, so AM, PM, peak commuters, things like that. This is looking at getting all of the residents out of a given geography out of an area quickly, versus that traditional transportation modeling, which again looks at that kind of peak AM, PM seasonal periods that impact.
so just to build off of what Woody was saying, when you have like the traffic modeling is not new, but when you have a dynamic traffic model, you make certain assumptions like land use, population. Those assumptions are very traditional. Well, as Woody said, different here, we factored in all the assumptions about wildfire timing, all those parameters that I described about the wildfire. And then Randy Johnson with DKS had to incorporate the wildfire evacuation zone and warning zones into that model. So that's what I mean by it's relatively new. And I think it's one of the few, if not the first application of a dynamic traffic model on wildfire evacuation.
Sorry, Ken, we got to take schedule. So I have one thing. This is just a small geography around class. But this model is to be expanded to entire county. It's a scalable model, and the result of the model or the result of the study are scalable to the rest of the West Slope County or the entire country for that matter. So it's not only serving that greater possible area. And at some point, the commission may decide to go forward with another study with another chunk of the county. You would then again just expand this model to that area.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I want to make sure we capture you.
I'm sorry, I think I might have hit something wrong. Sorry.
Okay, we're good.
Ken, I don't have anything to say.
mainly looking at fire, did you look at flooding issues at all? Is that maybe a whole separate study?
So, the draft study, when it, comes out, it includes a list of infrastructure improvements, well, both operational and then hard infrastructure improvements. And it has them by fire. And then, as Woody mentioned, the end game is to go get money to build all those things. So we have a list of potential funding sources. And then we'll start writing grants.
Cool. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm not seeing any additional questions. I want to apologize for those online because Dan looks a little bit like Darth Maul from Star Wars because it's very dark because all the light coming through the background, but he really is a very pleasant person. So he didn't say things. Really received that. And I apologize also, Beth Dyer from Bureau of Reclamation got confused. I was actually referring to Elizabeth Standeven. So don't worry, Beth, we did not miss your question, and thank you for checking in with us. So again,
Thank you.
huge thank you to you and Woody and the team, and look forward to seeing more of this, and really
Thank you.
proud of your efforts.
Thank you. Appreciate all the collaboration. We've been done it without everybody.
Thank you. Okay, well then we'll keep moving along with the program. So the next two items, there'll be a little bit of discussion here. Item 6B is the bookkeeping services proposal. And as you recall, we've been bringing this back to you several months in a row as we have been having discussion at the executive board about how do we move forward with managing the increasing administrative workload associated with the number of grants and the processes that we have with initiating payment and invoicing and gathering all of that and putting that together. And things have grown over the last year. What was originally Jessica's position as a assistance grant management sort of position has really morphed into she's managing the 3 assistance programs. That's really pretty much becoming her full-time operation. And there's a lot of working with contractors and generating invoices and billing, all of these things that go with that she has to help gather. So our next step then was to bring Tamara Johnston on board as our grants manager. And again, I have no idea how Pat pulled all this stuff together over the years, but yeah, Tamara, we remember we brought Tamara on under a consulting agreement, and she has literally just hit the ground running, building on where Pat left off. And that's becoming, we're maximizing her hours with us, just with engaging in quarterly reporting, looking at new grants, working with all of you on opportunities, answering a ton of questions. I mean, there isn't a day that goes by where we're not all emailing, working through questions and getting the status of different pieces and looking at the mechanics of all of that. So we've now maxed out, that capacity. And so our next step was Janet's we've talked about this, how many hours a week of not just managing the budget as the treasurer does, but truly doing the nuts and bolts of generating all of the invoicing, the work, putting all that together, adjudicating what Jessica gets to her, working with the CPA firm to get QuickBooks updated, and then ultimately getting checks out. Which I don't know how many we signed this morning, Janet, but it's like 30 or 40 a month now to pay out our contractors and reimburse all of you for any expenses you have.
$70,000.
So $170,000 of invoice or processing of checks and payments that we processed this month. So, and again, as you'll hear later from Jessica, just how our increase in our programs have really generated so much of that. So taking direction from the board, the e-board was primarily myself and Janet reached out and we interviewed a number of different bookkeeping firms. And bookkeeping is not necessarily a huge industry right now where there's a lot of folks doing it, but we got some great references from Tamara. We got references from our Pat Turner, our CPA firm. So we ended up contacting or engaging 4, and essentially Pat Turner, our current CPA, they don't have capacity to do bookkeeping. We reached out to Aaron Harris, the financial remedy company. They currently, again, they don't have capacity. But they gave us some other references. And so we spoke with Christina Kavanaugh, a particular firm, and she would charge anywhere from $58 to $78 per hour, depending on our needs, to do the basic bookkeeping. And then we reached out to Linda Park's bookkeeping service. Janet and I interviewed her. She charges $35 per hour. She specializes in working with a number of nonprofits and folks around El Dorado County, and just got a very good feel from her about her desire to take on this work for us and how that would interface with what we are currently doing in our program. And so what we'd like to do is recommend that we hire, well, essentially that we currently utilize Pat Turner to prepare taxes for $950 a year. And they post the financials to our QuickBooks, which is about $3,300 a year. We recommend hiring Linda Park's bookkeeping services, and she would assume, posting to QuickBooks. We pull those things away from Pat Turner, and then she would do all of our check preparation, all of that, and all that sort of goes hand in hand because it's all automated. When you enter all the financial data into QuickBooks, it actually generates the checks for you, and so that would all sort of be shifted away from Pat Turner's office. We would retain Pat Turner's office to do our annual taxes because we want that to stay separate, but ultimately move these other things over and then add these additional pieces where it's interfacing with associate counsel, continuing to process all these invoice things Janet's doing in addition to all of the other stuff Pat Turner's doing. So the net of all of this is we're spending $8,400 a year on all of our financials with taxes and QuickBooks. We would save $3,300 from not paying Pat Turner. And then with the increased cost by hiring Linda, our net additional annual cost would be $5,500. So basically, we're asking you for approving a budget of increasing by $5,500, which would again give us a bookkeeper to take this significant workload of invoicing all of that away from Janet and allow the treasurer to focus back on interfacing with the fire safe councils, preparing and approving the monthly budget, the projections for the year, all the things that the treasurer should be doing, and then overseeing these other activities. So all the board members should have received a copy of that proposal in the board packet. And I don't know, Janet, is there anything else you want to add to the process or the discussion?
No, I'll open for questions.
Okay. So with that, I throw it out to the group for questions, and I see Chris.
Mine's fairly simple. Another way to have said this is you don't believe that we need a CPA to do this kind of work. The difference between the hourly seems to be because you're either a CPA and you're expecting more on the hourly, or you're a bookkeeper where you don't have that type of certification or licensing. It seems then the licensing is the question. So to you then, finally saying what is the question? The question is, Pat Turner, if she could expand, which is a he.
Pat's a he, but Sabrina is a she.
We work with Sabrina, yeah. Sorry.
Okay, Pat's a fellow. And if he had greater capacity, we might have hired him at a higher cost. So this way, though, actually is a better approach, a 1, 2, 3 approach, including our treasurer as being the third part. This team gets us more of what we need for a cheaper amount of money. Excellent job, you guys.
Wow. I can't believe I'm actually going to say that Chris is right. It's absolutely right. The services that we were looking for are non-CPA required services. That's why we're keeping Pat Turner's services for what we need for CPA work for our taxes. And also we have access to them if we need a CPA for other things. But the day-to-day business, we don't need to be paying, that higher rate. So at the end of the day, yes, that's what we want to bring forward. And if we don't do something, Janet's gonna quit. So yeah, she is not, but Elizabeth. Oh, okay.
Efforts here. But I was wondering, does this new arrangement, does it add extra capacity to the county fire safety council and the smaller councils with abilities to go after, say, mini grants? Like we had this West Slope grant opportunity kind of dropped in our lap for mini councils, still a couple $1,000 is a huge boom. And it's something we more need. Does that, well, it increase our capacity, basically?
Yes, and I'm not saying it's like opens the floodgates for this whole new world, but yes, what we're looking for is efficiency and to have someone taking care of the bookkeeping and the day-to-day business process. Yes, it allows us to open up more opportunities to look at those things and not, I mean, we've just reached that sort of pinnacle right now without the ability to take on any more work.
Questions? So Elizabeth, to add on to what Ken's mentioned, in addition, what I as the treasurer or this person as the treasurer would retain is the actual billing on grants. And that's on top of the 20 hours that I'm doing on invoicing. So it will allow this person some capacity to do interface with the associate councils as well as keeping those billings up with our grantors without pulling my hair out.
And it's not in the board packet because it was we just ran it through as an estimate, but we did ask Janet to run an estimate of our capacity. In other words, we live entirely off of grants. And so all of our operating dollars that funds everything that we're doing, our insurance, all of those things, our processes, they all come from the administrative overhead that come from grants. So we have to project out what's the health of our organization, over the next, series of, years that we're being funded. And so I don't know if Janet has those numbers in front of her, but we ran that and maybe just give them I wanted to make sure we were in good fiscal health before we would even propose to be adding positions or looking at this. And I will tell you, we're on solid ground, but you need to hear the numbers from Janet.
So everybody gets the grant worksheet. Let me answer this question and we'll come over. Everybody gets the grant worksheet monthly, so you can see the grants that we have. So I did an analysis on the existing grants that we have, which includes the Stevens Authority and our BLM grant and the 5 or 6 CAL FIRE grants and the California Fire Safe Council grant. And built into those grants is fiscal sponsor fee, which comes to us as an organization to manage those grants and to manage our own operations. Looking to the future, meaning the amounts that we have not yet billed for our fiscal sponsor fee, our operational money from those grants, there is still almost $600,000 in fiscal sponsor fee coming from those grants, and those grants run through 2026. So over the next 2.5 years, there will be an influx of cash to run our operations of around $600,000. We spend annually about $120,000. So if you add this 5,000, it's about $125,000 a year in running our organization. So if you take that $600,000 that we have coming in and compare it to our annual budget, the health of our organization is we have funding for the next 6 years. And so there's been a lot of concern about, making sure that we don't have to downsize or downstaff or reduce the things that we do operationally in our organizational budget. We are on very healthy ground, even by adding this position. And I know Tamara mentioned when we talked about this, that most nonprofits only have 2 or 3 years worth of funding.
Actually 1 year.
Or if that. So as an organization, we're on good ground. We also have additional grants in the hopper, some CAL FIRE grants that would add additional fiscal sponsor fee on top of that to manage and make sure that we're maintaining the rest of our operation.
We have 2 questions.
I'm gonna make a motion that we hire a bookkeeper.
Paul, do you have a question before we go there? Go ahead, Paul.
So just to carry on with that, from a nuts and bolts perspective, and I think this is important, knowing that we are in good fiscal status, it will show our budget that we're going to go over on that line. just because it was after the fact. So people need to recognize that, and it's not a red flag because of where we're at. That was my.
No, very much appreciated. And David reminds us of that every time. Chris, go ahead.
I think the answer that somehow this changes our grants process is not quite a balance. What I'm saying is, this gives you sanity over not having, over being insane with the responsibility that you have. The second thing is, you gotta think of this as two things: the financial capability and how we're doing versus how we're doing on grants and going after grants. They do have to fit together, but one doesn't lead to a better job unless it does. You understand what I'm saying?
The only thing that it will help me do is be more timely in getting grant reimbursement requests in. It takes me a little bit longer as I have time available to work on this, because my always my first and foremost is getting the monthly bills paid and checks issued.
Yeah.
And then the time I have available after that first kind of goes to grants, unless there's an immediate question or so, but some of the things that I need to work on that are going to take more time because I've not been successful is getting our associate councils their login on for remote login to their banking account. And I know that I have been remiss in getting that, but that's a time thing, and it's because the bank and I actually have to sit down and work through that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, I'm not seeing any more questions, and I believe that I hear a motion on the table from, he may need a microphone, but do I hear a motion to?
Please give David a microphone.
We don't normally say that.
Hey, Janet.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. And we have a motion by David to move forward with the bookkeeper. We have a second from Karen. All those are any call for the question? Any further questions? Okay, all those in favor of approving the bookkeeper signify by saying aye. Okay, any opposition? And I'm gonna hold on. I see a hand from Alice that I missed. Were you just raising your hand that you're good to go, Alice?
Right, sorry.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. All right, the motion passes. We will move forward, and our goal is now to start working with Linda, at least seeing how quickly she can start, potentially even the 1st of March. But we'll get back to everybody with where we're at with that. Great, thank you. Yes. Okay, next up, this is an important item, and it obviously doesn't come without discussion. And there was interest in the executive board that we at least bring forward for discussion with the board of directors, that the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council provide a letter of support to El Dorado County on the current updates that are in play or in process for the Defensible Space Ordinance. We drafted a draft letter that went to the boards of directors. This really squarely falls within, to me, our policy XX or 20 that addresses political policy actions and position statements. This is not something that the chair or any member can just write a letter saying the Fire Safe Council supports this. I took this very seriously, and it says you get to the end of that policy section. It says, in general, it is the perspective of the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council to, in all situations, avoid being politically labeled. When a position is to be taken that reflects on the council, a board poll shall be conducted in order to form a majority consensus prior to announcing any official position. And that unapproved use or representation of the name is strictly prohibited. So recognizing that there has been, a lot of questions out there in the last several months about that ordinance, we wanted to bring this back for discussion and to a vote. I will tell you straight up. So I have obviously, in my role in working with El Dorado County, that's part of the program we're working on. I absolutely support the ordinance updates. I don't feel it's appropriate for me to vote on that as a member of the board, so I will abstain from the vote that would be proposed for you today. But with that, and also the draft letter of support has Hugh as the vice chair signing that. That was the reasoning behind that. But this has been a process, as we've talked about before, that the Council has had direct representation from the beginning, as Hugh has been representing us on the Defensible Space Working Group, which has this ordinance as just one piece of all the coordination that's going on. So with that, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, Hugh. We can certainly read the letter, or all the board members should have it. But with this, I guess I would throw it out to the board members. And basically the policy requires us just to take a poll. I would propose we do a roll call vote just to make everyone's feelings or position on that very, very clear. So there's no discussion or further discussion, but go ahead, Chris.
So I'm associated with two organizations that are also doing the same process. One is the surveyors, architects, geologists, and engineers. And I haven't seen the final draft yet, but one will be coming out based on us meeting, having a presentation by Sue Henneke and Tom Meyer. The other one is the Taxpayers Association of El Dorado County, and my chair is Pat Dwyer, and he has a subcommittee called Team Fire, which is a great name for what they're doing. So what I'm saying is that people are waiting, or at least we're not there like today, to make a decision because things are dynamic. And I guess we're kind of waiting to see what the final outcome might be for all of this effort that we're putting in. Now turn it over to us today. Do you see, I guess, in terms of your preparation of this letter, which I've read, how do you see this all fitting? Because we haven't gotten back to the Board of Supervisors yet, which I believe is coming up. I'm not sure if it's March or April, maybe you know, but tell us how this all kind of plays into the more broader review that's going on right now.
Good. Okay, first of all, this is not new, okay? And let's get clear. All this letter does, first of all, only supports the updates to an existing ordinance. In fact, there's been an ordinance in El Dorado County since 1985. What we did in Defensible Space Group under the direction of, actually came out of the Board of Supervisors and then through OWOPR, is look at the existing ordinance and see if there were anything that needed to be updated. And as we looked at that, and when I say we, I'm talking about a group of people who have experience in this arena. CAL FIRE's there, County Fire's there, the Fire Safe Council's there, the County Council is part of this task group, this group that's looking at that. And we looked at the existing ordinance, and we saw some areas that we thought needed to be updated. First of all, there were a lot of infrastructure that wasn't covered in the previous ordinance, so we wanted to add that. There were other things. There was the existing ordinance talked about reference fire hazard, but there never was a definition of fire hazard. So how do you do that? And so we added that. We also did, and there were a few changes. We did make some changes as far as roadside clearance. One of the big things one of the things that was there said, if you are on a slope and you live on a slope, instead of only going 10 feet on the side of the road, because fire burns faster uphill than downhill, the inspector could, if they felt, have you go further than 10 feet. Same thing with defensible space around your home. If you live on a hill and you go 100 feet and you have a huge manzanita patch beyond that, you might want to go more than 100 feet. So those were some of the changes that were made for that. One of the things I find interesting, and Tom may talk about this later too, is that this ordinance has been in place, like I say, since 1985. And I look back and I can't find anybody who's been cited for this ordinance since 1985. One of the other things we found in the ordinance was there was really no clear guide as how the county, if the county did want to enforce that ordinance and go through a process, how you would do that. So one of the folks that stood and was part of this was County Council, and they were there all the way through. We walked this through the various steps. And one of the things that happened, and many of you might know this already if you've looked at the ordinance that's on OWAPR's website, is we moved the process out of the court system into a hearing process within the county. So if there's a problem, it's much quicker, much less expensive for everybody to do, to go through the county. Now, we also ran a timeline. We also did a timeline to say, okay, assuming that somebody went out and made an inspection and the person just flat spit in their eye and said, I'm not doing it, and I'm not doing anything, and they didn't do anything, it's going to take approximately about a year for the time you start till the time you finally can get something done in that process, which from my experience personally, I will tell you, having lived this, my career, that's to me, I don't like it, but that's what it is. And that's the way the ordinance is. So one of the things that's happening is, as Chris mentioned, the county is starting to look at this, and they're getting letters. They're asking people to write in letters if you have a problem, and some people have. Write a letter and say what you feel is wrong or what needs to be corrected in this ordinance. Interesting, a lot of the things that have come in have been questions about stuff that's been in the existing ordinance. So I don't know where those letters were back a few years ago, but they're coming in now. The other thing about that is now we feel, because of that, we feel it's time, or I feel that it's time, not just letters writing to the county and saying, hey, I don't like your ordinance. Maybe it's time for some people to write letters and say, look, I may not agree with everything in the ordinance, but I do agree that the county needs an ordinance and need to be updated, and I support the updates. And that's what we're looking at. That's what we're looking at here. Chris is right. The ordinance hasn't been adopted by the county, but it doesn't make much sense for us to write a letter of support after the ordinance is already adopted. And one of the reasons I brought this up was because if you go to the Board of Supervisors meetings, and I know Chris goes to all of those, there's an exorbitant number of times that when things come up about fire safety in the county and defensible space inspections, all those kind of things, one of the first things the Board of Supervisors jump on are the fire safe councils. They all say, fire safe council do this, the fire safe council can do that, the fire safe council can do all these things. And if you've been to these meetings, you've heard that. So based on that, you look at that and you say, well, if you take so much and put so much emphasis on the fire safe councils, it probably is appropriate for us, the people that are out there doing a lot of this work, to write a letter and say, look, we agree that we need an ordinance, and we agree with the updates to the ordinance. There's going to be an ordinance. How it's going to exactly read when it's done, the few things that people are questioning, some of those may be changed minorly, but my guess is the ordinance that's out there right now pretty much is going to be a lot like it is. There may be some minor changes to it, but it's going to be like it is. So based on all of that, and in full disclosure, I shouldn't even tell you this, full disclosure, we had a meeting and I mentioned to the county chiefs, I guess I've been retired too long because I should have expected it. But I mentioned to the county chiefs, I said, this is your ordinance. Are you guys going to write a letter of support? So what they did is they had a meeting of the county fire chiefs. They kicked it around and the county fire chiefs wrote a letter of support. Well, like I say, I should have recognized, should have known it was coming. So they come back to us and they say, well, we did. Are you? So based on that, I said, maybe we need to do that. We probably need to move something forward. And so that's how we got to where we are.
Tamara.
Well, first of all, I support the ordinance as board member, so I would vote yes on this letter, but I also just want to point out that there are people writing letters to the Board of Supervisor opposing the ordinance, citing the Fire Safe Council's opposition. There was a letter on February 1st written by surveyors, architects, geologists, and engineers of El Dorado County, saying that fire safe councils and the public alike have expressed concern with this ordinance as written. So people are speaking on our behalf publicly, and so if we don't speak for ourselves, other people will speak for us, and we won't have to control the message. So I do think it's important that we make it.
And for the record, I did email Sage as the chair and ask them to clarify their letter to the board, because individuals may be reaching out, absolutely, but fire safe councils are not expressing concern or opposing the ordinance. And I made that really clear that that hasn't been an issue from a fire safe council. I think David and then Janet.
Motion and support the ordinance, but I guess there's no comment. Oh, do answer.
But we got Janet and then we'll go back to Tamara.
Janet Berenson, Ockham Fairplay Fire Safe Council. At our last Fire Safe Council meeting, we discussed the fact that the ordinance was out there. I have made sure that I sent invitations for the ordinance meetings, public outreach meetings to my 300 constituents that I have on my emailing list. And this discussion that we had at our Fire Safe Council meeting is that as a fire safe, individually, we can believe whatever we want. Personally, you can believe whatever you want. But as a fire safe council, this is the core of what we do. Our role is to help make our communities more fire safe. And if we, as a fire safe council, don't commit to what this ordinance is trying to do, then I don't know what we as a fire safe council are alive for. So from our perspective, from my perspective as the chair of Ockham Fairplay, I fully support this ordinance and I support this letter.
So we have an online question from Alice, and then I'll go back to, I think, to Tamara. You have, yeah, let me get Alice and we'll come back to you.
Thank you. I totally, agree that the update is a great thing to do, and improving the teeth, really just a little bit of the ordinance. And so much of it I really agree with, but there are some basic things. Wording I think is really important, and how exactly it's worded. And so I'm torn here because on the one hand, I would support it totally if a few key things were changed. I'm wondering if there's any way in the letter we could say something about, I don't know how to say this, but I'm not sure I can support it exactly the way it's written now. And, with my, anyway, I'm torn. And I'm just curious, it's kind of like Chris's question. Well, I know it's in morphine and that some of the community input will be taken into account, but of course, no one knows how that's going to be.
No, thank you, Alice. Tamara.
Just a typo. There's a word, tenants, that should be tenant,
Oh.
They're completely different words.
Ooh, that could mean different things. Words matter. Words matter. Okay. He was on it. Paul.
Why state and federal government be excluded? I don't agree, but I understand it. The question I have is, why are local school districts excluded? To me, that's part of our local government, local responsibilities. It's some of our most vulnerable younger residents in the county. And why would we exclude school districts from defensible space? It doesn't, I can't rationalize it, and I'd like to know to understand why.
Well, first of all, school districts, the county doesn't have the authority to enforce schools. That's state requirements. Now that doesn't mean that 4291 doesn't apply to schools, but the enforcement authority for that would be the state fire marshal's office, not the county fire safe council.
So is that then saying that
Ordinance.
but if a violation is found, that it would be turned over to the state fire marshal and they would act on it?
Well, you could certainly, yeah, if you have a problem with that, then yes, it would go to the state fire marshal and the state fire marshal would do it.
Where the forcing agency for the county then turn it over to the state fire marshal, and the state fire marshal would act on it.
Well, I can't tell you what the state fire marshal would or would not do. I don't work there anymore, but
Well,
I
I saw that they were on the committee, and I would think that we would want to get their input as to how they would act. I just think that I think it's remiss in not ensuring that, and that a lot of our kids go to school. I think it should be part of it, rather than just ask that that there's something that there would be a level of enforcement from the from the fire marshal, seeing how that fire marshal was on the committee. There should be comment.
well, CAL FIRE was on the committee, and Yeah, I'm still stuck in the consolidation of CAL FIRE and the state fire marshal, but well,
Well, so yeah, and Chris, go with your comment, and I was worried about this, that we would get down into a wordsmithing, and that's not what I'm really looking for here today, but, go ahead, Chris.
Well, a couple of things I just want to tell us are interesting. The questions that I asked, you've answered effectively. And giving me this 5 points, which I noted, on my sheet here, was a really good approach to answering my question. Ken, I also appreciate you abstaining, because there is this question of your past, which is significant, and this effort, and we want to make sure that you're okay in terms of no conflict of interest. I'm prepared to go forward with a motion if I don't need any additional information or a response back from.
So you said my motion?
Yes, he did.
Well, yeah, so let's make sure back, we recap. What I'm hearing is that David made a motion to support the letter of support, with I'll say with the corrections indicated by Tamara.
In respecting the process, I second this motion. I'll just thank you.
I think that's why we're bringing it here.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table. We've had questions, comments, those are taken. With that, I want to just query each board member. Both will do online and here in the room you need what? Oh, yeah, that would help, wouldn't it? We'll watch for you online.
Okay. Angel Ball. Janet Berenson.
Yes.
Gary Bowl.
Yes.
Eric Brown.
Yes.
Alice Cantelo.
Abstain.
Michael Conley.
Yeah.
Hugh Council.
yes,
Pat Dwyer.
Yes.
Dorothy Fine.
Yes.
Paul Gilchrist.
For my comments, I'm gonna vote present.
Sherry Hawk.
I don't see Sherry.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Oh, I'm sorry. There you are. Sorry, Sherry.
No worries. Yes.
Bob Hess. Tamara Johnston. Ernie Laurie.
Yes.
Chris Payne.
Gonna abstain without prejudice.
Paul Penn. I don't think he's. Is he?
There's a Paul online, but Paul's been on the road, so I don't think Paul's here. Yeah.
Karen Pullen.
Yes.
Steve Willis.
Yes.
Julie Wainea.
Hang on, she's on there.
Yes.
David Zielinski.
Yes.
Oh, then you didn't ask me. I want to make sure. Yeah. I want the group to formally hear me abstain.
And Tim Watt.
I'll abstain.
Okay.
All right. So we have a number. It's
16, yes.
So I think the motion carries.
Okay, 16 yes, 4 abstain.
Okay. So with that, oh, sorry. With that, the motion carries. We will move forward with and make the amendments to the letter. But I will tell you straight up, in listening, I mean, certainly Paul's comments and others, all well taken. And many of these things aren't things that will ever end up in the ordinance, but it's how the county will be implementing it through its own policy. And it's part of the direction the board gave back to the county, to the OWOPR, was to basically have an implementation plan. And these are the kinds of things that they're going to take into effect, how they enforce, how they do the outreach to our partners at the fire marshal. All of that will be spelled out and how it's done. And the commitment is to at least take the outline of that framework back to the board. So all these comments are well taken and certainly being heard. So great. Thank you all for that. So item 7A, Tom Meyer on the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. Tom is stepping into the Darth Maul position there. So
No. We'll say that we worked with the consultant over the last couple of weeks, really beef up and find time to fill the work. So that our something that has like the last of school, so the Cal time will do it, but I don't do it. Yeah, they'll send somebody from Sacramento. Yeah, we'll send it to use the unit. The law. But we're shooting to get a contract finalized to our board of supervisors to approve March. But we'll have a fair idea of that as the contract wrapping up all those final details. And then while that process is happening, we're going to be working to identify the stakeholders and the CWPP working group. So that once that contract is completed, we can get the project kickoff meeting started and get the ball rolling on this project. So that's about it. I have to share this time for any questions.
All right, thanks, Tom. Okay, informational items, 8A. I have nothing other than following back with all of you. We talked at the previous meeting in January about sort of putting together a futuring committee, if you will, to sort of look at bringing back some recommendations on sort of, visioning for us for the next several years. We talked about what our finances are. We talked about where workload is going, and it's an opportunity. I think we should do some level setting and see where we want to be in the next several years, so we can start planning for that as to how we want to manage our organization, et cetera. So Paul Penn because we always go to Paul Penn if we want an entertaining committee that's well run. But Paul's agreed to lead that for us, and so he'll be reaching out to folks. And I guess I would encourage anyone who we want a sort of a handful of people, sort of a cross section representing our membership to come forward and be part of that. So Paul's going to lead that effort. He'll be reaching out to folks, but give that some thought if you're interested, and again, maybe seek Paul out directly, but we'll be coming back more formally with you on that. Vice Chair's report, Hugh.
Just a couple things. Everything's as usual with a couple exceptions. This Tuesday on the 27th, we'll be having a class here for field maps. We have about 30 people signed up that have taken the defensible space training last year. CAL FIRE will have their folks here in this room, and we'll get them logged in and trained up on using field maps. That class is full right now. I can't accept anybody else for that at this point. That doesn't mean we won't have more of those classes in the future. Again, this is one of those classes that's the first of its kind within the state. CAL FIRE's doing that. We're again out there on the tip of the spear, I guess, to be the first class to do that. So we have that. And then on April the 19th and the 20th, we'll be having a 2-day defensible space training class like we had last year. We trained folks up. There's a sign-up sheet on the back table for that. If you haven't signed up for that, I'd encourage you to do that if you're interested. There'll be more information coming out on that to follow. And just as a point of information, some of the things going on within the state of California right now is looking at adopting an urban wildland interface code, which will become part 7 of Title 24 of the California Administrative Code section. In fact, there's I won't be able to be there, but there is actually a team meeting on that today at 1 o'clock to talk about that. So I don't know how quick that's coming out. I'm hoping to get a draft of that. I've asked for a draft of that so I can look it over and we can maybe see what's coming down the pike. But there'll be a whole separate code for WUI within the administrative code section in California coming up. And that's all I had.
Thank you. Right, Secretary's report, Karen. Karen says she's good, nothing to report. Thank you. Treasurer's report, Janet.
Treasurer's report, there's nothing out of the ordinary or new. It's treasurer's reports from home.
No, before David asks something. Yeah, everybody should have a copy of that on the board in your packet. So not hearing nor seeing questions. All those in favor of approving the treasurer's report as presented by Jen, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, thank you. Treasury report approved as presented. Okay, so I'm gonna take a little bit of executive privilege here and we get to partners reports. I'm going to move Troy Morton, Lieutenant Morton and EDSO up to the top because I know we're getting later in the hour and this is some good information that really plays into what we the presentation that we had from Dan. So with that, I'm going to give them the floor and I will get your PowerPoint going momentarily. So
please get the PowerPoint going. So we purchased a platform called Perimeter. Mapping platform. It's a website that you can go to. If you different zones. Good thing about it, this is the website, you don't need to sign up, anybody can access. So no matter what the emergency is, turn out, on. And I'll get into what we're shooting.
Can you see it on that screen there? Hang on here. I think it's done it again, Janet. Zoom can be very persnickety when you're trying to share. Let's see. Good. I'm sorry. Next one or? Okay.
Fire everything overpaid. Perimeter not on one. So this one flyer on both sides has everything about me and everything we need on perimeter. Ken has an email from me with this in a digital format. You can send out to all the groups. Fire state councils are going to be doing getting this message out because you all have a large groups within your community. So getting into it, the county just left the main zones. Town fire, local fire districts. Starts here. So then watch that. No, you're talking. Here, see that part of your zone is under an order of warning. It's really easy to understand. It's a little simpler than, Pleasant Valley Road, east of this, west of this, north of this, south of that. We'll still put that language in our alerts. But this just makes it very easy to go to perimetermap.com, see where you're at, see where you're going, and go there exactly in order or worse. So obviously we tried to name the zones. With name you or another, better fit one side of the area. It's also a great tool because you can see the whole county in one website. So you know how close areas are. They're either in that photo or warning to you, or if you need more time, like wild animals or disabilities and so forth, that's great. Also, if you have family living in other parts of the county, you know they're going to be evacuated, you can see that. So any emergency, this one website is going to have all the information on it. In addition to the evacuation order areas, evacuation warning areas, traffic control points, something that people wanted, we can put evacuation routes, traffic control closures, shelters, everything you need to know there. We used to do that using the GIS dashboard, but they're hard to move, hard to turn a phone and put out and put together. This happens very quickly in real time. Like I mentioned, RAID is still your alert in the morning. That's still how you get your emergency alerts. This is just a tool in addition to that. So you have a visual aid of what's going on. Let's skip ahead again, just to show you an example here. So this example, there's a fire, that's where it's occurring, skip ahead. And that's what it's going to look like. So the red is obviously mandatory, yellow is warning, and those are traffic push. So it's just very easy to understand. When you're using this, you'll see the blue dot, getting where you're at. So again, even if someone's from out of this area or someone had trouble with direction and so forth, it's very easy to see a blue dot and it's here red. Let's go. If you're in yellow, probably kind of think about going. And if you're from no color, then you say, but at least you know where you're at. All right, next slide. So that's the gist of it. Just as a reminder, nothing changes. Just because we have zones, nothing changes how we do business. So if you do the same as always happened, this is just the next school. Fire starts, fire sets up inside command, we join them. The decisions made where we got orders, where one and two feet, we send deputies in the field to back with you, we draw the orders on perimeter, public shots, draw the orders, we engrave and send out the alert. So nothing changes, it's just an additional tool to communicate with you like I said, I sent you in this, I hope all the fire safety councils and not all of their people has flyer and additional information. Another thing, I'm sure most of you know all these things, but I kind of want to start sending out, pushing these 5 tips to be ready for emergency. So number 1, enroll and grade our Colorado County Emergency Alert. Go to perimetermap.com and bookmark it or save it. And the purpose of that is we're hoping eventually, you know, if you go out and smell smoke, you just go to perimeter map and see if there's any evacuation or warning. Right, that's a very quick reference to those learnings. Familiarize yourself with backgrounds in your neighborhood. Just take 1.5 hour out of one day. Drive the extra routes in your neighborhoods. You know how to get out. Your evacuation kits, on medications, and documents, things like that, so that those are ready, or at least know what you need to take with you. This is important during emergency. Only get information from trusted sites and trusted sources. So, sheriff's office, local police department, CHP, CAL FIRE, local fire districts, other county. Go to trusted sources and sites because all of this information that comes from social media and other groups is great for that. And that's all I have to.
Okay. I may have had a. Yeah, I got a couple of comments, and it's a PowerPoint issue with Zoom, and I don't think it was progressing for folks online. But to Troy's point, what I will do for everybody is, Troy literally. Oops, hang on. I know there was a challenge with getting the slides to forward online. The bulk of his presentation, for those that couldn't see it online, is really this 2-page flyer that he has, and he did literally give it to me just this morning. And so, yes, we'll be getting the flyer out, and I'll see if I can bring that up for the folks online. But I think what's more important here is talking about what this is. As Lieutenant Morton said, it's not changing business in terms of how evacuations are handled and all that from out on the ground. But what this really is a game changer for, in my perspective, is that it's a real time, the folks out on the ground at the incident will be drawing the actual perimeter on the ground, and then it's immediately sent to, on a bigger incident, to the Emergency Operations Center. But in the meantime, it's sent to Sheriff's OES, who validate it, and then they push it out. Yes, there are zones identified mostly for reference so that people know kind of their area, but this is not Paradise where they said everybody in all these zones evacuate immediately. The zones are still clearly identified by this application. So you'll know literally real time when it's pushed out which streets are in a mandatory and which are in a warning. And that's, to me, what's very different than what we've had. We've had before kind of have to go to the web page and kind of look at what's there. Now we've got this very real time process that you can sign up for and see on your phone exactly the streets that are being evacuated, both warning and mandatory. And to me, that's a game changer. And as fast as they're able to process getting that information out and update it from the incident, it will come out to any of us who access the program. And then that will, of course, inform how they use RAVE and all of that. But I don't know, is that
Meeting with the full building. Part of the fulfill zone is under evacuation order. That's checked from the map for the location. And then we'll still type in and be able to word it, but for those of you using perimeter, just go to that and see if you're able to dot it, something like that. So it doesn't mean there's some sections of the county, maybe Cedar, Remote Bay, something where we're going to evacuate that whole zone, but a lot of them is going to be part of this zone is under an order, part of this zone, and else.
So questions from me, get back down here where I can see the folks online. So questions for Lieutenant Morton. Gosh, I thought you'd be all. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Elizabeth.
Just. I was thinking of my community, which a lot of older folks that don't have smartphones. With stuff like AT&T trying to drop line service. And I'm just concerned there's gonna be folks in Boonies where I am that will have no communications option here.
Like, can use my computer. Obviously, if you don't have power or cell service, it's not gonna be worth good. This platform does, there's limited information on this platform because they designed it to be able to download with like one bar, if that makes sense. I'm not a user, but we have very little services, so they'll download. So for those folks, it goes back to, it doesn't change what we do, we're still sending that to go to that, right? This is just an additional tool for people who do that active internet and computers as well. The landline thing is weird. I was talking to AT&T last Thursday about what their plan is with landlines in our county. So we're still working through figuring that out. But then I was doing some answers and where we do that. So we've been working directly with the director and find out what the actual what is actually going to be. They obviously carry out landlines in the rural parts of the county. Like, there's no way to go people without a landline. Like, so it's means one door, which we do, and we will, we do in all part of that. But that just means you exactly have to drive and whatever it is your house to tell you, rather than you get phone call right now. But the land says.
And the background on that for the folks that don't know is that there's the California Public Utilities Commission regulates, telecommunications along with electricity and all of that. AT&T has petitioned the Public Utilities Commission to drop. It's called POTS. Oh, that must be some fancy. No, it's called plain old television or telephone service. That's what POTS means. But there's been a requirement to maintain that because it is the last sort of lifeline, if you will. But with as cell phones and all of those things are happening, they're starting to, again, petition the PUC to be able to drop that requirement. And then again, there are a number of communities that are identified by the Public Utilities Commission that AT&T wishes to drop. So again, separate from this, the county is definitely engaged on this, but it's certainly something as individuals and community members, I would certainly ask some questions because I do think that's an issue for folks to consider. So I know, Mike, did you have anything you were gonna? Okay. All right. Any other questions for Lieutenant Morton? Paul.
So the app looks good. I just it's good, or the website is good. Just downloaded it and followed the instructions. I see multiple areas like North Diamond, Sleepy Hollow, Rescue, so forth and so on, but I don't see the 3 zones. Did I mishear you said there were 3 zones in the county?
No, there's
okay, then I misheard. Right?
Okay, yes. So we don't want there to be too many zones where it takes a long time to actually input the information, but we didn't want it to be too big. So we spent a lot of time, Cal Fire and us, making those zones. Yeah, that's what we came up with, but it wasn't just a guess. We spent a lot of time in our office trying to help first.
Okay.
There was one question Ken you asked me to answer. So rescue, water, I'm on board. Animal service is open. They won't be rescues as long as where they can. There's always staff in the end. But if the cow situation. You're not gonna have time to go to people's houses to get dogs and cats. They're like, small situation in mind. So there is animal service that is what it can, it's always back in the what do you mention, what is on, there's an ag and cattle pass program in by the ag department. Which you have to pre-sign up for. But again, for it doesn't do the cattle and steel, we had the pass program activation for cattle and steel where I just showed you cattle and We did create those passes in this deposit as well. Our contact info is on that flyer, so email, phone number, and website. Have any questions on, please call or email. Back to you.
Great, thank you, Troy. And then Chief Leonthal, anything to add on to that latest report or?
No. I guess the only point is zones are nice for education, but it really doesn't matter as long as you know your location on the map, you're gonna see if we've got, exactly.
Yep, thank you. And I guess that was the key point, just not to get too hung up on the zones. Great, well, thank you both. And I know for the extent that they're able to stay, they'll be here afterwards for us. All right, moving back to the beginning of our partners reports, I have BLM, but I don't see BLM, and I know they've got a number of staff vacancies. So we're looking forward to them getting some positions filled and able to join us again. But I do see CAL FIRE in the room, and look at that, Chief Hogue is standing up. So he's going to come to the Darth Maul spot.
Good morning.
You had it and you messed it up. There you go.
I haven't done that at all.
Right, yeah, right.
Chief in charge of our resiliency program here in the San Bernardino Eldorado unit. We've got just a couple things to update you on. Currently, we're working on coordinating our defensible phase inspection, where we determined where both our fire engines and our designated defensible space inspectors are going to be going out and doing their inspections for the 2024 year. And then we're also working in coordination with the defensible space working group here in the county at determining where those will be. So once we have those all figured out, we're going to put those polygons. They'll be up on the data hub, the OWAPA website. You guys will be able to see those. We're also going to be doing some outreach along with that as well, including not only social media, but be sending out some mailers and postcards, those types of things, so that folks know that we're going to be coming into your community and doing these inspections. So more to follow with that. We're bringing on a little bit of additional staff to help with some of the planning initiatives that we're working on. We're a research data specialist. We're looking on bringing on board in the next month or so. They're going to help with not only intel, so operation of the unit, but also with the incident planning things. And they're more of the specialized person for data and computer programming, and not so much all us knuckle dragging firefighters trying to figure out how to use those programs.
You said it.
The hazard severity zone maps, those have gone through regulatory reviews. They have been approved by the Office of Administrative Law, and they will be effective April 1st. So again, these are hazard maps that they determine the hazard in your area, not necessarily the risk that you have. So it's over a homogeneous zones that will identify the probability of having a fire in your area. So again, that's your 3 zones there, your moderate, high, very high severity zones. So if you have any questions on that, you can either Google fire hazard severity zones, and they'll have a map on there that it's a viewer, so it's interactive. You go and you type your address in and see where you land on the map. So that's all I have on the report. That question.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Jeff. And like Patrick's coming up, we'll have the part 2 of the CAL FIRE presentation.
Morning, I'm Patrick McDaniel, vegetation. CAL FIRE. Don't have too much to report this morning. Last week we did receive from Region all of our forest health grant applications. And so we downloaded that and started to review those at 7. And then yesterday we received Region 16 wildfire prevention grant applications. Usually we see ones that have been disqualified, for technical reasons like things with a budget or something. We don't know what those are this year, so we only have 16 to review, and we will be inputting our review into the website, and then those will be going to Region and process moving forward from there. If we have any changes that we would like to make to certain applications, we'll let you know in the probably in the next week or two. So we can get those, completed before we have to submit. That's everything.
Well, and Patrick, to your point, all of those applications, the 16 for the prevention and the 7 for the forest health, that's for all 4 of the counties that the unit represents, right? Okay. Okay, and we know we have on file that Patrick's only going to approve the ones for El Dorado County because those are the most important. Now, just no pressure. No, I do. I want to thank you, Patrick, for you've been a champion of the projects and things. And sometimes we throw you some curveballs and appreciate you always being there to help us work through it. Cool. All right, any questions for Patrick? Cool. Thank you. Okay, back by popular demand, Tom Meyer for the general OWOPR update.
Hello again. So quite a list to run through. So I'll just go through these and then answer any questions. So the Weber Creek CWMP project, we ended up having to extend the bid period for that an additional 2 weeks. It didn't look like there was a ton of interest out there. And when we extended it, we had 1 proposal at that time. So kept it open for an additional 2 weeks. It closed last Friday and we received a total of 4 responses. We got those this morning, so we'll be working over the next week or so to get those evaluations done and select a consultant so we can get that process started for the environmental review and clearance of the no issue parcel list. So again, that's the phase 1 kind of first step of this project. And then once that work is done and approved by FEMA, then they'll go ahead and award phase 2 of that grant. And that's when we can actually start the defensible space hardening assessments to work towards the eventual construction and actual on the ground work. Current year's defensible space county emphasis areas. El Dorado Hills Fire is wrapping things up through the Texas Hill community in that emphasis area. Next up is Outingdale, and that's scheduled to occur. Again, we'll be hosting informational workshop for residents of the Outingdale community to get an idea of what those inspections will cover, the importance of defensible space and home hardening. Real just general overview of that prior to El Dorado Hills Fire coming out to do the inspections. So that workshop is scheduled for March 5th at the Pioneer Park Community Center from 6 to 8 p.m. And notices for that went out last week. The last week, so residents will probably get early this week. But looking forward to get that done. And then just to tag on to what Chief O's mentioned, as part of OWOPR's defensible space working group, we met last week to start the process of identifying county emphasis areas for the upcoming year. Scheduled to start July or so. So our group will be meeting with actually the county GIS team this afternoon. To start drawing some polygons around the areas that we identified to get a better feel for the number of properties within those county emphasis areas, and then take that back to the OWOPR coordination group for some of a final blessing, and then Chief have mentioned coordinated messaging going out. I just want to talk to the pretty bad residents within this area. Firewise communities, Richie, our senior technical safety inspector, continues to work with prospective communities within the west slope of the county. He recently assisted the Loma Lotus community with their application. I believe that's still pending approval. And then over the last few weeks, he's been working.
We have Al Brum here. His wife's having an emergency and needs him to call her if he's in here. They said they. Al Brum. Yeah.
Yeah, Tom, can I just interrupt real quick? We have a message in from the fire department.
Al Brum? You're an Al Brum? Al, you need to call your wife right away, please.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you.
The municipal base ordinance.
I'll let him know he's got it.
So that we. Workshop in. It's small, Myers over in three. And that's what it's kind of the. This was the direction from the board when we did the first reading of the proposed ordinance. That December was to conduct additional public outreach workshops, one of which being on the up in the top of it. So we hosted that workshop, gave a similar presentation, so PowerPoint presentation for the December board meeting. And then it was much more informal, really just kind of opened up to a Q&A session with those of the attendants of the first range circles. Kind of fluctuated throughout the time, but attendance is about 30 people. Both in person and online or combination. The majority of questions and comments were focused around, what is and isn't considered defensible space, and then how our defensible space ordinance along with state law translates to or coincides with what insurance requesting for defensible space. A lot of times insurance needs and they're certainly happy to be able to do so. Are requiring to either reduce or renew insurance. Beyond state law for importance. So spent a good portion of that workshop discussing that and taking feedback from those that attended. The next public workshop is scheduled for next Thursday, February 29th. Park Community Services District. Yeah, again, this will be another hybrid meeting. And was posted to our website. We've kind of shuffled things around.
Not too big. Either way, he says, "Why are they mine?"
There's copies of the flyers that went out in local newspapers and social media. And then also links to the webinar for the Cameron Park location. And we still have the proposed ordinance, the red line version and table of changes. We've also added kind of a higher level summary of key changes through majors. That really just kind of outlines it at high level. What's state law, what's in the current ordinance 5101, and what the changes are in the proposed ordinance 5186. So I encourage you to take a look at those resources and materials that are on our website. And then again, please feel free to send our office through the Wildfire Ready email. Any questions or concerns or feedback on my approach. Following these workshops, we'll regroup with the full space working group, evaluate some of the feedback and comments received, and then determine if the changes to the ordinance are necessary before we go back to the board of supervisors. We don't have a date for that yet, but shooting for sometime later this spring. For the defensible space working group, part of the request from the board, in addition to these public workshops, was to develop an implementation guidelines document. And the main request was to create a 1 or 2 page document that highlights kind of a preamble, purpose, and intent to implementing the ordinance. We have a draft version of that, have to go to a couple more places, but when we return to the board later this spring, that document will be available to you as well. I believe we mentioned this at the last meeting, but if not, the county OWAPR received notice from BLM back in January that we've been, yes, tentatively, it's a little more informal than normal, but slated to receive the BLM grant, and that $100,000 of our original $10 million ask was available this federal fiscal year, and with the remainder contingent upon the Fed's continuing resolution. So kudos to Janet who stuck away, but we're working through kind of relooking at all of the budget and allocations that were originally developed for that grant application, along with the timelines, and reworking where necessary, and then working with BLM to kind of finalize on project description, scope and budget, and move forward. We're hoping for more formal notice of award or notice of intent to award the grant that we can take out to the county board of supervisors to accept those grant funds and start moving forward with that project. And I think the majority of that initial $100,000 will be utilized for developing additional public outreach education materials for the festival states, something other programs offered. And then just real time level, the remainder of the funds, and still need to relook at those numbers. But funding to the El Dorado County Fire Safety Council for the defensible space assistance programs, as well as defensible space assessments and home hardening assessments. And then funding for local fire districts to conduct defensible space inspections, and then a portion of that for some additional field breaks in areas around the county that are adjacent to BLM land. We were also notified recently that the Fire Safe Coordinator grant through the California Fire Safe Council is the application period open tomorrow and closes mid-March. We'll be submitting an application for hiring a position within OWAPR to fill that coordinator role. So the anticipated start date of that funding through the Fire Safety Council coordinator grant was April, or is April. So we'll work quickly to be in line with that deadline and effective date as quickly as possible. But I'm pretty certain there will be, I mean, on the county side, there's a couple extra hoops to jump through with getting a position and accepting the grant. So really hoping to get that in place as soon as possible so we that role built. The GIS data group, we're in addition to working with them to draw polygons around those county emphasis areas. One of the other things working with them is to clean up or true up some of those boundary maps around some of the fire safety councils. Because some of them, the line went right through a parcel. So really just trying to adjudicate all of it and get us whenever possible, get those first possible, get those maps just to be updated on the Walker mapping tool. And then lastly, kind of again touching on what Chief Hope shared, the CAL FIRE Fire Hazard Severity Zone map On February 6th, we took an item to the Board of Supervisors to adopt the 2007 version of those maps as part of a separate process that we're working through. That was the first reading, and then we'll be going back to the board next Tuesday to have the second reading and have that ordinance adopted. And it's just a one section addition to chapter 8.08 fire prevention of the county's code of ordinances. And then once the 2023 maps are effective, we'll have to return to the board again to adopt those. Probably shooting for sometimes, depending on the board's calendar, and how quickly we can get on the agenda, sometime late April or to that process. So it was to do with adopt the programs. With that, any questions?
For the workshop in the Cameron Park, you have to, it doesn't look like you have to.
So we're doing that hybrid version through the Teams webinar. And I believe you do have to register for the event. And then on our end, there were just a couple of questions that are optional.
We have a question from Alice online. Go ahead, Alice.
Thank you. Actually, I had two quick questions. One is when you're doing, or when the county's doing their inspections, are they going to be using field maps also and giving data to CAL FIRE? Do you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
The simple answer is yes, Alice. We
Okay,
use the
that's
data
good.
county same
Thank you.
system.
And then the other question was for the implementation booklet that's coming out in support of the, or rather in addition to the ordinance, is there going to be a chance at all for public input on that?
We still have, like I mentioned, first draft version through, and then back to the Walker's coordination group. I do anticipate making that available on the Walker's website in advance for whenever that hearing is scheduled with the Board of Supervisors to visit that first reading.
That'd be great. Thank you.
All right. I don't see or hear any other questions. Great. Thank you, Tom. Oh, again, a lot going on. All right. Next up, we have Chief Cordero with the El Dorado County Fire Chiefs Association. Again, backed by popular demand.
Good morning, Tim Cordero, representing El Dorado County Fire Chiefs Association. Just to tag on to some of the comments from Chief Rowe and Tom regarding the Central Space Working Group. Most of the fire districts in the county at the engine company level, we also do principal space inspections. So we're kind of waiting in sidelines to see once those areas are established by the county, then we'll see whether there's opportunities for us to dovetail our engine companies in alongside those areas to make sure we'll get a bigger bang for the buck, a larger swath of those inspections. We all have several of our members that have been involved with the Municipal Space Ordinance Update Group. Fire chiefs all were very appreciative of the work that group did. We were in support of the ordinance updates. We've sent a letter of support for that ahead of Hughes letters. So kudos to that group.
See Lucas here, do you? Yeah. Do you see Lucas?
I want to report for the Possible Parson Council for their.
He's online.
March 23rd. A lot of the fire districts will be there with the staff display as well as all license again have their sync demonstration.
County fire.
And then just with the recent storms we've had in the county, we've had the opportunity to do what's called pre-positioning. Now, yes, typically that's something that takes place during the summer, but it's always dynamic. It's more of a winter time. Let's say a system where based on certain criteria, predicted weather, whether it's fire weather or in this case, rain, potential flooding stuff. If we hit a threshold on a score sheet, Cal OES will sponsor additional resources in the county. So Chief Lowenthal has been pivotal in getting that information processed and sent into OES. This recent storm had up until this morning. Virgin County had 7 mission. So we're staffed and available 24/7 for a 48-hour window. to meet the needs of the community. But you know, with the storms and the upcoming fire season, we're seeing what type of damage is out there. You know, what trees from that green, which ones obviously not going to share. There's storms that will impact fire season. That's where we're at.
We look good. Thank you. Well, you can ask. Great. Great. Thank you, Chief Cordero. I think that Lucas Shepard, Captain Shepard from County Fire, who represents the Fire Prevention Officers Association, I believe he had to step off. Don't see him online anymore. But a lot of what they're working on, that group, you've heard bits and pieces of today, particularly with not only the ordinance, but the rollout of the inspections and the assessments that both CAL FIRE and the local districts and the county are doing. So we'll look back to Lucas for an update on the next one. Go ahead, have Chris first and then David.
Yeah, if Lucas is here, he'll probably be telling you, he's gonna be the guest speaker at the 19th of March, Taxpayers Association.
Okay, thank you for that.
And he's gonna speak about subjects that we've already talked about today.
Right. No, thank you for that. David.
Can I see that RCD, Courtney left, but Tamara, Chris, Courtney and I were part of the group, and it's called, we met with something called Team Rubicon, and maybe when it gets down to give the order or something,
Yep.
Tamara, Chris could comment on it.
Yep, we can weigh in then, David. Thank you. Okay, so I don't believe there obviously some staffing changes at the El Dorado Forest as well. Nikki Johnny has moved on to a position with as a national incident management organization team member, which is a huge deal within the federal structure. So Brad Stewart has been assigned by the forest supervisor, Joe Stout, to fill in and represent. And we've worked with Brad off and on over the years. He's great. I don't think he's had a chance to be here today, but we'll continue to reach out to Brad and continue to have a Forest Service presence and get the things that we need there. Yes, I don't see Mark Egbert online. And as David said, Courtney, it looks like she had to step out. So we will circle back to the RCD for a report for the next meeting. But I do see Eric Brown from SMUD, and we'll gladly give him the floor.
Morning, just a couple of quick updates from SMUD. One in particular regarding El Dorado Ag in the classroom. We were invited to participate in Ag in the classroom in January and February, which was fantastic, and we welcomed that with open arms. So we rounded up a number of arborists and participated with some fifth graders, 50 of them, from Gold Trail School on January 12th. The February 8th has been postponed due to weather conditions, so those 90 students will get their SMUD fill sometime in probably. That's being held up at Blodgett. So that's an exciting opportunity for SMUD. Share a little bit more about what we do, and then all of our efforts in the American River watershed and Crystal Basin particularly. And then finally, I've mentioned in the past that we've had some ongoing fuels reduction works in 2019 in the community. We had 3 challenging landowners on that out of about 1,500 parcels that we've been working on since 2019. That's now down to 1 challenging landowner. Operation, and we're moving in the right direction. Whether at this point that last landowner is probably going to restrict us from finishing that work until probably March or April or whatever Mother Nature deals with us. That point is the end of my report, unless there's questions.
Great. Thank you, Eric. And as always, thanks for everything that SMUD is doing. So Mike Webb's not able to be here today, but I can report that Tom Meyer and I met with Mike Webb and with the Vegetation Management Program for the PG&E's El Dorado County program with the intent of trying to increase dialogue on where we can, SMUD has set such a wonderful bar for the coordination and engaging and on fuels work with the utilities. Mike Webb is really trying to get PG&E positioned there as well. They're just coming from higher level program, direction you're not in El Dorado County. And so we're trying to find targets of opportunity where the fire safe councils, the county and others can collaborate. And so they've committed to ongoing dialogue and identifying some opportunities. So as things start to pop up, we'll definitely want to bring it back here for discussion and share that with folks. Right, we've had the sheriff's office. So lastly, and I see Elizabeth Dyer has hung in there from Bureau of Reclamation. Beth, are you willing to share some thoughts with us?
Well, the thoughts I have to share are just gratitude. I think this is a wonderful meeting, Ken, and you do a really good job bringing so many people together. It's a good meeting. It's helping the Bureau understand who all the players are in areas that we're not landowners. Working with Mike Connolly on the Auburn Lake Trail Shaded Fuel Break. We're working out there with we had the California Conservation Crew, then Wildfire Services group. It's a contract that we have for about 5 years. They've done some hand crew work. Now they're going to be doing some mastication and piling mastication, as well as piling burns out there. And they're going to be working with the AEU unit for a pile, a burn permit for those piles. So we're waiting for that to happen. And thanks a lot to Patrick McDonald for all of his assistance and institutional knowledge. If you want to know anything about something, I would suggest you start off with good old Mr. Patrick O'Donnell. He's a big help. Over at Folsom Lake Shaded Fuel Break with the Lake Hills Steve Willis, we're on another successful year of starting in the rain and in wild conditions on the clearing of the boundary. We've been working with the California Conservation Crews again. We fortunately have not had a lot of, knock on wood, trees fallen in that area this year. So we're hoping this is our last storm. And that's it for right now. So thanks again.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And again, thanks for the partnering with all the folks out there and getting that done. All right, program reports. Next up, grants and funding, grants management. Tamara.
Tamara Johnston, grants manager. This is my role as grants manager. To be clear. So January was taken up a lot with reporting. It's a big reporting month for all of our quarterly reports. So that was a lot of my time, plus our CAL FIRE grant applications, which I reported on last time. I also submitted a grant proposal to the Women's Fund. Their small grant, they funded our defensible space program the last 2 years. So we submitted a proposal to them for $8,000, which we'll see if we get moved forward. And that again would be for defensible space. We had a pending grant that was declined. We had applied for $75,000 to pay for defensible space assistance program and some of our training, volunteer assessment training materials, and that was unfortunately declined. And then upcoming, which I sent out an email about this, but I just wanted to give a little more information. There is the California Fire Safe Council has a grant opportunity due March 15th. The El Dorado, we as the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council can apply for one grant of $100,000 that has to be matched 1-to-1. And then we could fiscally sponsor another grant for $100,000. So that's the maximum that we can do as an organization. So from the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council grant perspective, we're looking at applying for money to help create a video content library, create videos that would be available for everybody to use on various aspects of defensible space and home hardening. A website, social media, some of the website social media stuff that we're paying for. Possibly some training materials. I'm talking to Alice about what that would include. And then partnering with associate fire safe councils that would like to do small projects that are education and outreach for your own fire safe councils. We're talking, depending on how many fire safe councils we get that are interested, it'll be small amounts of money, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 probably. So if you're interested in participating and you have an education and outreach project that you're thinking about for your fire safe council, stay after this meeting today. If you can't stay, email me or call me, and we'll just discuss what you're thinking about, and hopefully we can include as many fire safe council that want to participate. So, and then my monthly reminder is, if you are thinking about a project, start with me first. It takes a while to put together your project ideas. It takes a while to request fiscal sponsorship from El Dorado County Fire Safe Council. There's a whole time frame. So start early talking to me about what you're about.
Awesome. Thanks, Tamara. And yeah, definitely, there's a lot happening in the grants world, and stay in touch with Tamara. Program reports, assistance programs, Jessica. Microphone. I always forget that part.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to be announcing the year-to-date money that we have spent on each assistance program. For chipping program, for the year so far, we have completed 47 jobs, cleared 102 acres, chipped 7,751 cubic yards, and spent $22,817. For defensible space, we are currently paused on that, but we have cleared 6 parcels. Total cost was $7,751.10. That served 2 veterans, 6 of them are seniors, 2 low income, 3 disabled. For hazardous tree, we have assessed 16 new parcels this year, completed 54, identified 51 new trees, cut 107, and spent a total of $124,345.
All right.
Any questions?
Good.
Okay.
Thank you, Jessica. Okay, next up, Hugh, training.
Oh, I already talked about the classes coming up, but we do have a training education group. We'll be meeting tomorrow at our office in the conference room. Elizabeth has arranged for a representative from the insurance commissioner's office to be there. We're going to be talking to them about some stuff because we want to talk to them to try to get a little bit ahead of this workshop that we have planned with the insurance and realtors coming down the road. So that's there. The other thing that will happen at that workshop is we'll probably try to set some dates for some of the short workshops that will start occurring quarterly after this meeting. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But that's all I have for now.
Thank you.
Unless we have questions.
We're good. I will have, we see one question online from Sherry. I'm not sure if it's from this or from the last one. Go ahead, Sherry.
It's actually from the last one. I was interested, the hazardous tree program, there was rumor, or I read somewhere that might be paused as well soon. I was just wondering if that's still going strong, or what to tell the community if that's still going or not.
We currently have quite a bit of funding, so we will announce when we are stopping that, but we're not expected to do so for a couple more months.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you.
Sure, Sherry. I think the rumor, Sherry, is we were trying to group some of the projects, so we paused sort of everything over the holidays. But yeah, the program's definitely back and going. So
Good,
great.
good. Thank you.
You are welcome. Thank you, Jessica and Hugh. Outreach, Alice.
I don't really have anything to report this month, other than that I'm excited about the possibility of that education grant with Tamara.
Great, thank you, Alice. And I will say it's late breaking, but through a partnership at the Nonprofit Center, where we have our Fire Safe Council headquarters, we are working with Justin Taylor, who's a videographer, and part of his commitment to the other partners at the Nonprofit Center was to offer up some free services to sort of get us started. And so we are taking him up on that offer. We're going to be spending some time doing some very short video vignettes on why become a Fire Safe Council, what's the value, and how do I become one. And so we'll be putting some things together and getting some things out there. We definitely probably be tapping folks on the shoulder for maybe some help in being on camera with that. So more to come there. Governance and new council formation. Anything new there, Karen? Okay, all right. Karen has nothing new to report for new council formation. Project reports, item 10, and I think it looks like David had to step out. So I think I will just drop right down to Chris Payne on biomass. Anything else in that subject area?
I get my information from Greg Stanton, who is the county's biomass cogeneration individual. So this is as of this morning, just a couple, like an hour ago. We got the, what is it? What's BOM USD? Anybody? I think it has to do with the school district. Black Oak Mine and Wisewood Energy are exploring the PG&E's Microgrid Incentive Program, or MIP, which provides up to 18 million in funding per project. So they're looking into exploration into that program. The county will be applying for a USDA Rural Business Development Grant next week to fund a bioeconomy development opportunity for a BDO zone evaluation and the rating of EDC, meaning El Dorado County. The report and rating help to attract bioenergy and biomass utilization investors and developers, which in turn drives economic development and job growth. So ends my report.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions? And as always, thanks for keeping us up to date on that. All right, item 11, community council reports for the good of the order. Councils on anything's happening in your area. Yes, Greenstone.
Greenstone, something private. We have got a very big interest in having some Greenstone recently, mostly because Farmers Insurance is canceling almost everybody. But it's been a great process for us, and people are very appreciative of what we're doing as a fire safety council. So that's a good note. So people are getting more engaged in Greenstone. We just recently over the last week, did 4 more homes. 2 of the homes I suggested that the folks actually asked CAL FIRE to come out because I didn't see any violations, and they both had CAL FIRE come out and they had no violations. So that was beneficial for them and probably may help them in regards to their insurance. So we're planning our events for May and one during summer, one in the fall. So we're trying to get the word out. I've sent that out. We have a monthly newsletter. I've sent all the stuff about PRC 4291 and the ordinance, and telling people about this and trying to educate them as much as I can. Gotten a few calls about that, so people are getting interested in these defensible spaces, laws and ordinances. So that's it for now.
It's a lot. You're right in the center of it. And the farmers issue is getting a lot of play. I know that the Sacramento Bee has been running an article. Several of you spoke to the Sacramento Bee, but I think that's certainly going to be more discussion coming as that continues. Others? Chris Payne.
If David was here, he would have jumped ahead of me and told you this. We had a meeting with the RCD yesterday, David and I, and others. And we were talking to a group called Team Rubicon. Rubicon, actually, we find out, is a river in Italy. And there's some famous crossing that they took the name from. But Team Rubicon, as Ken, you're aware of them. Ken?
Yeah, yes, I'm aware of them.
You're
Yes.
aware of them.
Yes.
They're going to have a special project coming into the Sacramento area. And it's a period of about 6 weeks. And I'm sorry I don't have the literature because I was relying on David to fill in, but the main point is, you got it up there?
I think this,
Okay.
he handed it to me.
Yep.
Did you-
Stop by and see it on your way out.
It's got the time on it. Anyhow, they're coming with 50 volunteers from the Massachusetts Maritime Academy in back east. And they're bringing these kids or young people out to California, and they're gonna put them to work. And I got the dates here just a second. It's a veteran, Team Rubicon is a veteran-led humanitarian organization that serves global communities before, during, and after disasters and crises. Just a second. No, it's we have a contact in El Dorado Hills named of Cord Wagner, who's on the team. This will be April the 21st through May the 18th. And what they're doing is going into they went and met at the RCD, and we connected with them just to have a point of entry into our community. And it was a very excellent meeting. Them telling us about their volunteers and the organizational structure, which is very much has a substance, and therefore I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Alice, online.
Let's see, for the Oak Hill Area Fire Safe Council, we've tried a different model slightly. Whoops, wait a second. I'm sorry. We've tried a different model this time where we're having 2 winter workshops instead of other educational things throughout the year. And so our first one was last month, and another one is tonight, where Dan is actually going to be presenting the Greater Placerville Wildfire Evacuation Study to not just us, but we've also invited 2 other fire safe councils. And I think that's kind of a nice way to do it. We have both Diamond Springs and Fort Jim, who are on either side of us, coming tonight also. And then the only other thing was that we had one of our banners stolen, and that was a bummer.
Wow, okay, that has to be a first. Thank you, Alice. Any other councils? That's Dorothy. Amina Pollock.
Behind the communal fires. We would like to take the moment to be able to face a new unit. We put in one of the applications. It's going to be adapted in phase 3. Midway 50 corridor forest built improvement project.
Rolls right off the tongue. Yeah.
Need to create an acronym.
Oh, yes, we're hoping to get 11 miles cleared by grant funding through Cal Fire for 19,000 plus 1,900 plus acres. Close to $7 million is what we're asking for, 69,900,000 change. Thank you for that. Yes, a little bit of money going on. Anyway, we came out with 30, and we wanted to say thank you because we also got 30 letters of support for all this grant coming, starting from the state. We've got state representation, county representation, city representation. And the biggest thanks is also Camino's been working with the Halloween Fire. The letters of support for their work for Placerville Fire Safe Council, for Jim Fire Safe Council, Texasville State Fire Safe Council, Springs Regional Fire Safe Council, Mitchellville Soul Fire Safe Council, Cedar Grove Fire Safe Council, Golden Ridge Fire Safe Council, not done yet. The State Council, right, Lake and Dark Lake Fire Safe Council, along with all kinds of firelight. But the biggest thing also goes to this group, the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council, board for your letter of support and letter of commitment. Part of the commitment comes in by saying that you will continue, and for all of us as the thing, okay, we're having the chicken within most ways through this program. So I just wanted to take the opportunity. We appreciate all the work with everybody. Fire Safe Councils have done, and thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy, and kudos to that whole group there because you guys have plugged into a complicated project that you're really making work. Okay, I think I saw a hand in the room, and then I'll go to Julie online after that. But let's go here first.
Gallagher Road, Fire Safety Council. We're going to have a project working on our evacuation route, the alternative route. And it usually has problems after storms involving trees down and washouts. So we'll have a little bit of a busy day there with our community volunteers. And so that's going to be the main thing on that.
Thank you, Ken. Julie, Omo Ranch.
Yes, thank you. Two things. We're going to have a Green Waste Day the first weekend in May, and we're going to try to set it up in a neighborhood where we currently have low engagement, so that we can hopefully get some people who don't normally get involved and familiar with us. And secondly, we have been facilitating a second water tank project between a private property owner and the fire district. And so the tanks are in place. There's just been some final details that need to be worked out between the district and the private property owner, but it's exciting to see a second water tank project be facilitated.
Thanks, Julie. And that's kind of a new way of looking at things. You want your neighbor to engage, put a dumpster on their property. And it seems like that's, I like that approach. Okay, any other councils? All right, I know we're late. We're long in the tooth today. With that, any other public comments, things not already covered by the program or the other councils? Hey, not hearing or seeing any. I truly want to thank everybody for hanging in and the presenters. There's just a lot of information, a lot of things happening. And if you didn't sort of pick up on the common themes for these groups, didn't rehearse any of this ahead of time, it's genuine when they're talking about how they're all talking to each other. And it's not a perfect science, but that's why you're seeing so much engagement, because all of these folks, I can tell you from personal experience, are engaging each other every day in these planning efforts and the things that are going on. So just kudos to everybody for staying connected to all of that. So with that, our next meeting is March 20th here. With that, stay safe. Don't slip on the roads with the weather. Have a great day. And the meeting's adjourned.
Oh, wait.
Oh.
Permits. Commercial permits, meaning for every 5 acres, they can have 200 plants. The first permit I pulled up was 117 acres. That's 1,000 commercial marijuana plants. It could be right next to you. The other one was 200 acres. And then the other one that I pulled up was on Fairplay Road, next to a bus stop. He is also a registered felon. His is also in process. I am here today to present a petition to take to your supervisors so you, the community, have a vote again on this. Again, your agriculture board voted in 150 permits. Over 20 of them are in process. 12 of them are already approved. Do you think that's enough commercial cannabis in El Dorado County? I personally would like to keep this El Dorado County, not Humboldt County. Other counties have tried this. Santa Barbara, it brought a mold issue to their grapes and their cannabis. They had an argument in lawsuits between what it did to the cannabis because it was too close to the grapes. Again, Amador County tried this, more lawsuits. I want to keep the revenue in El Dorado County, keep it El Dorado County and not Humboldt County. There will be a public meeting at your supervisors on March 7th at 1 o'clock. If you cannot attend this, if you're interested in keeping El Dorado County, not a commercial cannabis, because 20 open commercial cannabis, I think they have enough resources. Do we need another 100? And the meeting is March 7th, for your supervisors at 1 o'clock. If you cannot attend this, please via Zoom or email your opinions. I personally have been here over 50 years, and again, I don't want Humboldt County. We have El Dorado County. It is some of the beautiful stuff. We have people that have been raised here, they leave here, they come back to raise their families.
Well, great. Thank you very much. And we're happy to, after the meeting, you can certainly have folks address that. Any other public comment? All right. Here we're seeing none. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Copy of this.